Look within. Look within. Look within. And live your life. And live your life on the edge of two worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are. Take the step into the unknown with Alexander McCaig and Jason Rigby as they explore the thinly veiled world of consciousness, spirit, and the human condition. Join them in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Welcome to High Density Living.
Welcome to Higher Density Living. This is your host, Jason Rigby, and
Alex McCaig.
And who's our special guest host?
This is our guest host, Gaia.
Gaia right here. This is your dog, Alex.
Yeah. This is my dog, Gaia. She's absolutely adorable, cute little puppy, 5 months old. And Jason, we want to talk about dogs today and dogs' consciousness.
Right.
And how we are kind of connected with them. So, do you have dogs?
Yes.
So, why don't you tell me, what's your experience been with dogs?
I think that the biggest experience I've seen is that they're very loyal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people talk about that. And then also they're just so loving.
Yeah.
And forgiving.
All the time.
And you can have a bad day, and then if you see your dog, you're always just like, oh,
it feels so much better.
Yeah, because they're just, and I always hear this from people, it's like, dogs are so innocent.
Right. And so when they see you in the world, there's no judgment.
Right.
They're looking at you for who you are, right? That's just like that pure innocence.
Right.
So when that dog comes in, you feel the honesty and the joy that the dog has.
So they're not actually judging?
No, there's zero judgment. The dog doesn't understand what judgment is.
Right.
That's just our perception of how we put things in the world, right?
Right.
And when we tell children, oh, you got to judge things like that. That person is that way.
So how would we, and she's like looking around, having fun.
Yeah.
How do we display this non-judgment attitude like a dog?
Well, what she's doing is she observes only to observe. She takes the world in exactly how it is. There's no programming to say that this is how the world is, right? From her birth, from the moment she's touched this planet, and it's only been a short 5 months, she's watched.
Right. And
she's only seen it. No one's told her that this operates a specific way, or these people go this way, or this person's good or bad. It's indifferent to the dog.
Right. She's just at that moment deciding to say, I'm here. Now, is a dog ultimately, like in their brains, are they just present? Like
a dog is always present in the moment.
Like at the exact moment?
Always at that moment. And that's why they found that dogs really have no sense of time.
Right.
Because they're always in a present moment, right? And so when you lose that, you can live in that moment. You can feel that pure joy, right? That innocence. Right. And that's what we begin to see.
She's like, ooh.
Yeah, she's like, what's going on? But beyond that, the dog over time starts to feel your consciousness, right?
Right.
You connect with the dog. And the bond is something that becomes more physical.
Right.
And this is something we were talking about with the morphogenetic field. I didn't come up with this theory, right? This was a British gentleman who came up with this. But what he had found through the studies of the dogs, and we talked about this briefly in our podcast, was that the dog knows when you make a decision. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter where you are making that decision, the dog senses it. So if you're out, you're doing groceries or something changes in your mind and you're going to come back home, they would film the dogs and they would show that the dog was immediately up to the window to wait. The moment the owner made the decision to turn around. And this happened over and over and over again.
And so how is that, how is the dog being able to feel that with their owner?
That's interesting. So what you're doing is you're impressing your consciousness on the dog. So as the dogs develop, it's not just getting older, right? Gaia, come here. They begin to understand your nature, your name, right? And then what's going on. And
like she knows her name, she knows who you are, she knows everything about how to respond. She's responding to please you.
Right. And she's starting to feel an identity, right? And she comes back because there's an emotional connection for her, right? There's some sort of gain in that bond. But beyond that, over time, the consciousness as that begins to be impressed on the dog, right? As you see the dog becomes more human over time too, does it not?
Right.
The longer you have the dog, don't you realize it starts to pick up on a human trait? Mm-hmm. That's because the dog is actually connecting with your consciousness. So it can actually sense on a more emotional and feeling and natural level on the thing that we in our daily lives tend to squander and hide back, right?
So how does a dog love? Because I know that's the highest vibration.
Well, remember how I originally explained that a dog observes things and takes it just as it is, with no judgment? It just says, I know that is what that is and nothing else.
Right, and she found a chip.
That is the highest form of love, right? Because that is acceptance and understanding. without any judgment.
Right.
And that is the highest form of love. So if you could practice such a simple thing that the dog does itself, your elevation in how you see people and yourself in the world and the way you connect with them would be totally different.
So you would see that. So this is amazing. So if you could look at someone without any judgment,
right,
like a dog looks at someone,
right,
you would transform the way that you love.
Absolutely. Imagine the joy. You would feel that immense amount of joy that the dog feels.
Right.
It's almost like a borderline panic attack that a dog has with that amount of joy.
Right.
Imagine if it was
she's hacking up the chip.
Yeah, she's hacking up the chip now. But she's so happy that she got that chip.
Oh yeah.
But imagine going around in the world and that's how you felt about things.
Right.
That's your view on things. That's your perspective. Because at that point, you've gotten rid of all the programming that has designed you to view the world in a certain way. Right? So now becoming more like the dog does not make you any lesser of a human being. It makes you more of a human being. Because there's something beautiful to learn from them, and that's how we should observe the world.
In every aspect, whether it's a dog, whether it's another animal, whether it's another human, because
correct,
we're all one.
We are all one. And we've seen that even with the connectedness of our consciousness with the animals. Just so to say that you're greater than an animal or you have a higher place above it in this world, you really don't. You're both sharing the same amount of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And you're connected in ways that you never thought were possible. But science has shown that time and time again.
Especially with that whole dynamic of, now she's over in there, she found something else. Yeah.
But wouldn't you do that too? You would explore more.
Yeah. Well, could you imagine a world with no judgment? Could you imagine being a human and not walking into a store or walking in or being in traffic?
Right.
That's like the worst possible ever. Being in traffic and then not judging people.
Yeah, that'd be a tough
How
one.
would you feel if you could just automatically not judge people?
Well, I'd have my head out the window with my tongue sticking out.
Exactly right. That's what it would be.
You know what I mean?
Oh, she's like, I can do that.
But when a dog sees a reflection or a light, it's a magnificent thing.
Right.
And we've lost that childlike innocence that we used to have. Right?
Exactly.
So to find that thing, to find it back inside of us, to remove all those attachments and those distortions that we have of how we think reality really is, just accept it for what it is. Be more like the dog. Connect with the dog. Right? And don't be mad at your animal when it does something.
Right.
It's just being exactly what it is.
That's all it is.
And so not only does the dog respect you for exactly who you are, you should start respecting it for exactly what it is.
Yeah, and you can't take a dog and create it into something that fits your judgment.
That's exactly right.
Because that's what we want to do with everything that we do in our lives.
That's a metaphor beyond us and the relationship with the dog. That's us with other people. Us with businesses, right? Even the choices we have or the conversations we have with others.
No, I love that. That's good. That's awesome. I'm glad you brought your...
Yeah.
She gone.
Let's call her back real quick for a quick shot. Gaia, come here. We got to bring you back for the camera. Good girl. Good job, huh? Come on, let's go back for the camera. Let's sit right here for everybody.
Yeah, right in between.
Perfect.
It's podcast time.
Yeah, podcast time. Good girl.
She's like...
And everybody, don't forget to listen, subscribe, and share to all of our posts at Higher Density Living.
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter,
Reddit, Tumblr.
Oh yeah, we're on it all. Yeah,
we're on it all.
Deezer. I still love the whole Deezer
our
thing.
favorite
for our German followers.
That's right.
We're gonna be stars over there.
Yeah, we are.
I just feel it.
And just remember, everybody, all is one, and be more like the dog.
Perfect.
Thanks
Alex. Yep.
Look within, look within, look within, and live your life on the edge of two worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are. The learning is done. Become the teacher in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Become a higher density being. Please go to www.higherdensityliving.com.